Take two.
We are recording. Take two.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Press Box. This is John Carter. I'm really pleased today to have Tim Lelito, Kelly Clemmer with us, and Tim, obviously, St. Clair pro football player. Kelly is the development coordinator, or as Tim says, the big boss for his foundation.
Yep.
So congratulations on coming and seeing us, and really looking forward to our conversation here.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having us on.
So,
Thank you.
Tim, obviously, we talked about coming out of St. Clair. You played St. Clair football, right, for 4 years?
3 years, yeah. I started when I was in 10th grade here. So I originally grew up in Fowlerville, as everyone knows, and then between 9th grade and 10th grade is when I moved over to St. Clair and then started playing football over here.
So what was it like coming into a new high school? Any kind of the normal, not quite sure what's going on sort of stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I had a lot of anxiety coming in here. Anything, brand new, especially at that age, is very intimidating. So, but that's what I love about this community in St. Clair is they took me right in like I've been here all along, and I met so many friends that I'm still friends with today, and so many parents that I talked to that were just took me in and kind of were my foster parents and stuff like that. When I got here, so it's a fantastic community.
That's great. And I know you had tremendous success. Now, interestingly, you also played basketball. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I did football. I was a three-sport actually.
Oh, really?
Actually, yeah, I did.
Oh, that's right, because you were track
I
as
did
well.
football, basketball, and track. So, yeah, I had Coach Stahl for all 3 years, or 2 years actually, when I played basketball. So, that was a great time.
How did that help you in your development as a professional? Looking back,
I think being a multi-sport athlete, I didn't just focus in on one sport. I didn't, specify on one sport. I think being a three-sport athlete really helped me, especially with my agility and footwork and everything like that, playing basketball and hops and my explosion and everything like that. So, yeah, I would highly recommend athletes nowadays to not specify in one sport, is to do as many sports, to be a well-rounded athlete, play 3 sports.
then you, after high school, you went to Grand Valley.
Yes.
Very, very successful football program here in the state. What attracted you to that school?
It helped that they had just won the national championship the year before I got there. So Grand Valley was awesome. I went there. They were kind of recruiting me from the beginning, and it was funny because I got the letter in the mail from Grand Valley, and it was Grand Valley State, and I was kind of like, I don't know where this is. I've never heard of this college before. So, but no, I went there and had a great time. Had a really good career at Grand Valley.
They've had a very good coaching staff for a number of
Absolutely,
years. Great continuity
absolutely.
there, correct?
Yeah, it was the coaching staff was phenomenal there. I think because of Grand Valley, especially my coaches there, George Barnett and Tim Morrison, the offensive line coaches there, I don't think I would be in the NFL if it weren't for those guys. So they really helped me get to where I needed to be coming from high school to make that transition.
And an interesting transition. So when did you think about, I've got a chance to be a pro athlete? Again, Grand Valley, not the Big Ten, not the MAC, but obviously sent
Right,
kids
yeah,
to the
yeah.
pros. When did that kind of realization come about?
It kind of came about when I actually played next to 2 guys that went into the NFL. So the first one was Nick McDonald, and he ended up getting picked up by undrafted by the Packers.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one was Cam Bradfield, who got picked up by Jacksonville. And it was kind of like, hey, if those guys can do it, I can do it. So
Because you'd play with them, you'd work
yeah,
out
exactly.
with them, you
I
saw
played
what
with
they
them,
could
worked
do.
out, saw what they could do. So, and they were, Nick was playing. He went 1 year with the Packers, and then he was with the Patriots. So, Cam spent 3 or 4 years down in Jacksonville. So it was definitely when it came my junior year, and I was like, hey, I think I can do this thing. So, started getting. I didn't think I was going to get any accolades whatsoever. I just, put my nose to the grinder.
Offensive lineman,
oh, yeah,
right? Not
exactly. Wasn't thinking I was getting anything or any awards or anything like that. But then I started getting awards like, all conference and things like that. And I got the Offensive Lineman of the Year award when I was a senior there. So, that especially clicked in, and it was like, okay, hey, we're gonna try this thing.
So looking back on high school Tim Lelito versus where you were at Grand Valley, what was the biggest difference, say? What was your biggest improvement?
From high school to college,
Yeah.
the speed of the game, for
Okay.
sure. Because everyone, the speed and the strength of everyone, because everyone was kind of strong in high school, but everyone is so much faster from high school to college. That's kind of what my takeaway was my first couple of practices at Grand Valley. So, I kind of equated it to, like, practices in high school weren't really anything, and then you go and play the game, and it was kind of fast. Well, the practices in college were faster than the high school game.
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, so I can't even imagine what a game's going to be like now.
Yeah.
So, and they were quick. They especially the type of offense that we ran. We ran a no huddle offense and zone and
Lots of plays.
Tried to throw it all over the place, and we based our offense a little bit off of the Chip Kelly Oregon offense, where we just tried to get as many plays in as possible. I think we were at one point trying to get plays off in 17 seconds. With 17
Doesn't
seconds
that make it
left on
hard
the
on a
clock.
big offensive lineman, though? I mean, I know they always talk about the offense, but I'm thinking, there's guys up front that's got to be tough on you.
Yeah, yes and no. It's definitely tough, but who else it's tough on? It's tough on the defensive line.
Okay.
So, when we're getting plays off in 12, 15 seconds, things like that, it's hard for the defense to substitute guys in and out. In the NFL, you got guys that strictly only do third down or
Right.
third and long plays that they send them in. That's the pass rush guys, and they don't play first and second down. So, playing that fast, you try and keep those guys, eliminate those guys off the field, and so that helped out a lot playing.
So you kind of have the initiative. You can dictate a sense.
Absolutely, and especially being on the offensive line, we can dictate. So we're if you get up and hurry up and get set, and then that means the defensive line has to hurry up and get set, and that makes them tired. And especially if we pancake them and they got to get off the ground, it's even a little bit better. So now they got to roll over and get up, and it's like. It's like, oh, not again. Here it comes again in 12 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. So at the end of Grand Valley, undrafted,
Yep.
but picked up by New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Tell me a little bit about that. How had they scouted you? Was it something that they formalized, or were you one of a large number of people?
I didn't hear anything about New Orleans. They were definitely not on my radar. I know before the draft, the Jets were calling me probably every 3 days, every 4 days, something like that, saying, hey, we like you. We're obviously not going to take you high or anything like that, but when it comes to the 6th, 7th round, keep your phone on, and definitely after the draft, keep your phone on. So got nothing, and then I know they had one or two picks left in the 6th and 7th round, and they took an offensive lineman. I said, well, that's it. They're at my spot. So, and that was kind of the year for the offensive line too. In 2013, that's when Fisher from Central went first, and took everyone was like, oh, well, they're taking a lot of offensive line in the first round. So, yeah, we were pretty deep that year. But no, moving on and going on to New Orleans. I mean, like I said, I had no clue that they were even interested. They kind of. My agent didn't know. There was a couple other feelers out there.
So what's it like as an undrafted free agent coming into what had been a very successful pro team, maybe had some down years, but going into a situation like that, it's got to be difficult to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got there, and like I said, going from high school to college, the game was fast, and now going from college to the pros is even exponentially even faster. So you got the best of the best, the cream of the crop basically in the NFL. So if you guys, if you thought someone was fast in college, it looks slow. So I've played against a lot of good guys in the NFL. Right when I got there, we had Broderick Bunkley, one of the strongest human beings I've ever met in my entire life. So I had to go up against him every day in practice, and guys like Akeem Hicks and Cameron Jordan. So being around those guys, it kind of helped me acculate a little bit faster.
Well, I mean, so what do you think caught the coach's eyes? I mean, what was it? Was it versatility? Was it just holding your own with a guy like Bunkley, or what was it?
I think it's a combination of everything.
Okay.
Hold my own against those guys, and actually, doing what the coaches wanted me to, and kind of excelling a little bit at that. And then, and two, like you said, being versatile.
Tell us what you played.
Yeah, when I was in college, I played left guard the entire time. I think I started like 45 or 46 consecutive starts at left guard. But when I got into the NFL, they only travel 7 or 8 offensive linemen. So you got the starting 5, and then you have 2 or 3 backups that they travel as well. So one's basically an interior offensive lineman, which plays both guard positions and the center, and then you have a tackle that can play right and left. So when I got there, even before I got there, when I talked to my buddy Nick, and he's like, hey, when I was in college, he's like, hey, you need to start snapping right now. Like start snapping, start preparing for preparing for the league, and because they only travel, like I said, 7 or 8. So my last year at Grand Valley, I started snapping a little bit in pre-game and pre-warm-ups with the center QB exchange and everything like that. So going on to the pros, it was an easier transition, where a lot of guys, they didn't practice going up to when they got there for camp. So it was kind of nerve-wracking snapping for Drew for the first time, especially in training camp. So
did he give you any pointers? Did he say anything?
No, he didn't say anything.
So I guess it was okay.
Yeah, exactly. So there's little stuff here and there that hey, raise your butt up a little bit, or sink down, or but for the most part, he really didn't critique any much other than that.
I've always wondered, because it just seems to me, and maybe it's even underrated by people who don't play football, but learning the playbook and all the different plays and calls and so on, especially as center. I mean, that as a rookie, that's got to be a real challenge to you.
Absolutely.
I've seen the book.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
The book is ridiculous. Well, especially when I was with New Orleans and we still had the books. Now we have iPads, so everyone has the iPads and scrolling and everything like that. But the book is really thick. The terminology that they use is so much more advanced than whatever I was used to in high school and college. So just that was one of the big learning things for me, is not only the speed of the game and how long the season is. In college, I think we only played 11 games, and then you had playoffs and things like that, and you only play maybe 14, 15 games. In the NFL, the regular season is 16 games, and you got 4 preseason games, not to mention playoffs.
Right.
So that was probably one of the biggest learning curves that I had.
So you mentioned Drew Brees. What is it? I mean, physically, certainly not the most physically imposing quarterback you'd ever seen, but what is it that makes him so good, do you think?
His preparation, for sure.
Really? Okay.
Drew's preparation throughout the week is unmatched. He gets there at 6 o'clock in the morning and doesn't leave until 7, 8 o'clock at night. So on Thursdays, when the offensive line we would have offensive line dinner, Drew wouldn't show up until 8:30, and he would be coming straight from the facility.
Okay.
So, and that's our third down day, so third and long situations and things like that, and be prepared to put in 2-minute for Friday and things like that. So it basically is like having a coach on the field.
Right.
So it was, made my job really easy.
That's interesting. So I got to ask, who was the toughest opponent you ever faced during your years with New Orleans?
We faced, in 2014, we came up here actually for the Lions, and we had, that's when they had Sue and they had Fairley.
Right.
And my first snap was in a 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. We were going to go down and score, and I had, in the NFL, they have silent count.
Right.
So the center has to put his head between his legs and look at the QB and, when to snap it and everything like that. So I was looking at the defense, and I saw Fairley right here, and I was like, okay, he's a big dude. Just take it easy. And I put my head between my legs, and it was on 2. So I come back up, and the next thing I know, Sue's coming, they move, and Sue's right over top of me, and I go, oh, God. I put my head between my legs and snap it. Thankfully, I played an okay game against him. I didn't let up any sacks or anything, so that was good. But Dockett, my first year as a rookie, he was a beast. I played right guard for Ja. Ja got hurt the game before in Tampa Bay, and I had to take over for him. So I started against Dockett, and he was a 4 or 5-time Pro Bowler and All-Pro. And so I think I let up 3 sacks against him my rookie year. And I just remember after the game going into the locker room like, Drew, I'm so sorry. And he's like, dude, don't worry about it. Like, we won 37-17. Like, it's okay. We're good. He's like, I get it. And it just so happened to like tore my calf the first series or second series of the game. So I was playing basically on one leg and it wasn't too good. But I think the best player that I've ever had to play against so far is Gerald McCoy for Tampa Bay.
Right.
He that three technique spot for him, he just gets off and
So quick.
so he's probably 300 pound, 305, something like that. 6'4". So he's a massive human being. But I swear to God, he runs like a 4.2. he can get off. At some point, like, Gerald, do you know the snap count? He's like, no, bro, no. I'm like, no, you're lying. You definitely know the snap count.
Well, let's talk a little bit about one of the big reasons you're here, which is talk about the foundation. And Kelly, as a director, tell us a little bit about how the foundation is set up and some of the goals it has.
Yeah, is that me?
Yeah, it's on you. Boss.
Well, Tim always started 4 years ago. He started his camp, the free football camp that we're still doing again this year. And I think over the years it brought a lot of interest in people in and growing, and that made his mind grow of, the camp is a great way to give back to the kids and a place for them to learn the football fundamentals. But, being 3-sport athlete, we want to give to all sports and all athletes, boys and girls, of all ages. So the foundation was kind of created to support those kids coming into the sports world. And not only are sports important, to stay healthy and active, but in your life of, academically or just creating those bonds with other friends and being part of that family keeps a lot of kids out of trouble and things like that. The sports kind of support that. So one of the first things that Tim wanted to do to impact the kids in the community, sports-wise, is helping to cover pay-to-play fees. So that's kind of our main focus. Last year he did some fundraising and things. I just started on this year to kind of help him out, get the ball rolling and keep it going while he's on the field. So
Kind of hard to do both.
yeah,
It's real hard to do both, and I've been finding that out for the past year and a half now. So, I get calls in October and November like, hey, I was like, hey, not now. Get at me in February and March. But she's been great, and like she said, sports was kind of like my vehicle to get to college. I think without sports, it wouldn't have happened for me, and obviously I wouldn't be where I'm at. So, being able to kind of give back, and especially for kids that don't necessarily, isn't their fault, doesn't have financial ability to play sports, why should those kids be punished? So,
Right.
And it's not just, when you think of it, you're like, oh, St. Clair doesn't have any of those kids. Well, we have we have documentation saying there's kids in St. Clair and in the Blue Water area and in St. Clair County that need help. You don't think of St. Clair County necessarily as being a impoverished area, but there's definitely families out there that need help. So that's why I went with the pay-to-play fee. So I sat down with the board last year and I said, hey, what's the fastest way right now we could help kids in the community and get out there and be involved. And one of the things we came up with is the pay-to-play fees. Like, hey, there's I think St. Clair and Marine City are the highest actually. The pay-to-play fees are $150 per sport per kid. So to me that's it's almost unacceptable. So
Well, and it's interesting, kind of going back to what you say, maybe at that when you have to focus only on one sport because you simply can't afford. And I think the idea of helping with those fees has got to be a terrific thing for a parent or even a kid to know, I don't have to worry about that. Yeah. And you mentioned something earlier about the fact that it's not just St. Clair. I think that's really neat that you're really looking at a countywide kind of approach.
So it's all the middle schools and high schools in St. Clair County.
Okay.
The only school that we don't help because they have their own funding to cover those pay-to-play fees is Algonac. Props to them for covering those for those kids. So, but we are glad to come in and help where we can. And today we just signed off on some grants that will go out in the fall. That was
116 kids in the
116
fall and the
kids.
spring. So
Say that again, Tim. I think that's really important.
there's 116 kids within St. Clair County that we're going to help this fall and spring.
That's terrific.
We literally just got back from signing all the grants.
Terrific. Really, really good.
Yeah.
So maybe take a second and explain how the donation process works and what the foundation does.
Sure. So last year, Tim kind of put out a challenge to the community that he would match, or whatever the donors would give. So there was some donors and other organizations within
A
the
lot
county.
of booster clubs.
Right.
Yeah,
Sure.
The
booster
booster
clubs
clubs.
and different things. There's an organization, I'm butchering the name right now, but it's up in K-Pac, and they did a phenomenal job donating and doing the match grants with us.
Sure. Okay.
And the St. Clair County Community Foundation kind of umbrellas those
Right.
and helps us with the outreach with that, which is phenomenal. This year, those grants will go out, but this year we're kind of doing the camp, and then the last day of camp, July 19th, we're doing a party in the plaza, which is kind of a wrap-up of camp and kind of a big fundraiser to hopefully get more grants going out the door next year come fall and spring, and even winter sports and things like that. So we're definitely trying to just grow, and the main thing is starting from the bottom, and we appreciate all the help that we've had so far, but we're going to continue having the camp and doing the events and throw some watch parties for him, and and all that is going to go straight back to the kids and helping their succeed and build their own legacies.
Well, Grant, it's terrific. So maybe, Tim, talk a little bit about the camp coming up. I know it's the 18th and 19th of July, correct? Yep. You hold it down at East China Stadium. Tell me a little bit about what you do and who's involved and that sort of thing.
Yes, it's July 18th and 19th. We have 5th through 12th grade. 5th through 8th is going to be in the morning from 8 to 11.
Okay.
And then it'll be 1 to 4 with the older group. Last year, so before this is the 4th year doing it.
All right.
The first 2 years, it was just me and a couple other guys. A couple NFL guys would come. Mark Ingram came the second year.
Who's a Michigan guy?
Who's a Michigan guy from Flint. And then my buddy Michael Lewis came up one year, I think the first year, and did a phenomenal job. He loves doing camps and everything like that. And he's actually going to be back this year.
Great.
So Michael Lewis will be back, and he's actually got a book out. So I'm pretty sure he's going to bring some copies of his book. So if y'all want to get some of those, he'll be more than willing to hand those out, probably at the Party in the Plaza deal.
Okay.
But no, so it was just me for the first couple of years. And a couple of the local high school coaches, Bill Nesbitt was out there, and those guys from St. Clair. But this year, I started it last year actually. I started bringing college kids in. So last year we had all the guys from Grand Valley come, and I think we got maybe a couple more guys this year from Grand Valley and from different schools. Maybe some Central kids. The fullback that we have actually down with the Titans. I'm forgetting his name right now, but he's up there, and he might stop in. He's from
Right.
Romeo, actually.
Oh, really?
So,
All
yeah,
right.
Romeo, local guy, went to Central, now fullback with us, so he might stop in. But why I started bringing in the college kids last year was it's great for the high school guys and the little kids to be around the NFL guys. And they're like, oh, that's cool. That's we have NFL guys here. That's great, but it didn't give them anything to aspire to. It didn't show them the next step. So when I brought the college kids in there next year, we had great feedback from parents and from the high schoolers saying, hey, that guy's not much bigger than me, or he's not much faster than me. Like that, I can do that. Like I can get to that level. So I feel like the years before when I brought the NFL guys in, people almost got discouraged. So
Because they're so big.
because they're so big and so fast, and I brought when I brought Mark in, everyone just kept looking at his calves, like, oh my God, his calves are this big, and I'm like, yeah, well, he's worked at them for since
entire
high
life.
school,
Yeah.
since he played basketball, and like I said, did the jumping and power, So bringing in those college guys to show kids that, hey, there's a step in between high school and the NFL.
Right.
So you go from high school to college, you work your butt off for 4 years or 5.5 years at college, and then you go into the NFL, and that there's a transition there. So I think that's great. I'm doing it again this year. There'll be college kids this year. So and it's great for the college guys as well. So a lot of them are going into teaching or coaching themselves. So
they get a feel for it.
Exactly.
Right?
So I think the NCAA put out a commercial a few years ago where it said like 99% of athletes are going to go professional in something else other than sports, and I think that was fantastic. And a lot of those guys that are in sports, especially in football, go on to become high school football coaches or middle school football coaches or teachers and things like that. So I think that's a great segue for those guys as well. So that's why I'm kind of getting a good mix of everyone.
So how many kids do you think will be involved in the camp then?
So far we have 200 signed up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Running
And,
around.
it always happens every single year. We had 280 kids last year, and I think like 5 days before we only had 175, and then it was kind of like a last-ditch push and a rush kind of to sign up, and I feel like that's how it's going to be again this year. So there's 400 spots available.
Okay.
But right now we only have, I think, like 220 signed up or something like that. But last year we had 280 kids at the camp.
So,
And
got to ask you.
from all over too.
But,
It wasn't just
Yeah.
from St. Clair or Marine City or Marysville. We had kids from Port Huron Northern. We had kids from Algonac. We had kids from Richmond. I think a couple new Baltimore kids last year. So down New Haven.
Yep.
So they are all over the place.
So one of the real controversies, obviously now in football, is the whole injury thing, particularly head injuries. What do you say to parents about that, and how do you address that question?
It's hard. I think it's a twofold question. I think at some point, especially being a parent, like your kid is going to get hurt in football. It's it's not if, it's how bad.
Right.
So I think that's one thing, but I think there's different steps you could take. So one thing with our foundation that I'm doing is I want to help schools with better equipment.
Sure.
So obviously, there's some schools out there that have outdated helmets and things like that just don't have the money to, buy the good helmets and have the great resources. So that's one thing moving forward. What I want to do and help kids out that way. That's one thing. The next thing is there's a ton of research out there right now. They're doing with crash test dummies. So they're actually taking the concussion pads and sticking them all over these crash test dummies' heads. And what they're doing is they're having the car accidents and everything like that. But what they're doing is they're changing the neck sizes and how thick the neck is and how strong the neck is and everything like that. So one thing that I've done throughout my training, leading up to the NFL and even in college, a little bit in college beforehand, and what I do now is I always train the head and neck. The stronger the neck that you have and the thicker that it is, they're finding, the less concussive forces that you're having with the head and neck.
All right.
So to me, just like training for a bench press or squat or anything like that, you want to train your neck so that way you have less injuries. I mean, we were down with Jamie Morris and Marcus Ray yesterday, and they're ex-U of M guys, and they said, Mike Gittleson, we always train neck. And that's kind of, one thing that I've based my training off of is Mike Gittleson and what he did. And, you look at some of the guys that he had, Jeff Backus and Woodson and those guys and how long those guys played in the NFL, 16 years and 19 years and things like that. And you talk to those guys and absolutely, they train head and neck every day. So, that's kind of what I don't know if I want to play 16 years, but that's, moving forward, that's try to keep myself as safe as possible and try and eliminate some of the CTE stuff later on in life. So.
Sure. Yeah. So Kelly, just to kind of wrap up this segment, tell a little bit more about the party in the plaza. Obviously, it's in the plaza. Where exactly?
So it's in the Riverview Plaza in St. Clair, in the courtyard there, the new by the fountain and everything. It will be on July 19th, our last day of camp, and it starts at 7 p.m. That way camp can wrap up and things, and all the kids can
Take a
get over
shower.
there.
Yep.
Yeah, these guys can
I
be
can
ready to
take a
go.
shower.
Yeah. So at 7, we're gonna have some live jazz music to kind of pay homage to the Saints there. Tony Ruda is coming up from Detroit with his band. That's going to be fun. We're going to have...
You might have a real special guest for us.
Oh,
actually.
really? Oh, cool.
We haven't 100% confirmed it yet, but he might have a real special guest.
Excellent.
A guy from Lapeer, Michigan, a little older generation, but his old band members might show up. So
No, that'd be terrific. Really interesting.
Yeah. So we'll have music, and we'll have a couple food trucks there. Eli's Eats on the Streets will be there, and Jimmy's Frozen Custard is also going to be there. And then we'll have a bar and some yard games out. So everyone's welcome, but it is a $20 admission.
Sure.
And you can buy those tickets at Murphy's and T's Rockin' Roadhouse out in Columbus.
and Kroger out in Richmond.
And Kroger out in Richmond. So there's, unless you want to go on, do it online, Eventbrite. If you type in party in the plaza, it'll come up, and you can buy them online as well. But one of the cool things we're doing with the silent auction is we're showing local legacies that have kind of continued on after their high school and college careers, and reached out to some other St. Clair alumni that we know. Joel Seddon, Rochelle Mathis, Rachel Kehoe, Jake Cronenworth, Tyler Mott have all donated items or memorabilia or special sports treasures to them to kind of show their support. So that's really cool that we're kind of
That's a great idea.
highlighting them, and it gives a lot of the kids something to strive to and people to look up to, and they would definitely we're thrilled to give back to it and totally just love
It is
what
kind of
we're
a neat
doing.
fraternity in a fairly small town that you have that many kids, or young men, really who are professional athletes. I was talking, Tyler Mott actually was here last week, and just saying how that kind of thing is very unusual in a place the size of St. Clair.
And it's growing
Yeah.
too. There's, I mean, I don't want to say, I think Rochelle actually kicked it off, but there's been Rochelle and then Kehoe, then
Yeah.
myself, and so going along down the line, it's Mott and Cronenworth and Seddon, and it's just it's growing, and being from a small town, St. Clair, where I think we have like 3,500 residents or something like that.
It's not many.
It's not a whole lot, but we have all these professional, semi-pro athletes in one town, in one location. I think is outstanding.
Well, all right, so just kind of closing up, and actually you and Tyler are in very similar situations. You just got traded by the Blackhawks. You signed as a free agent with the Tennessee Titans. How did that come about? I mean, you obviously, you play through your rookie contract, and then you have the ability to kind of choose a team. Why the Titans?
Well, I played through the rookie contract, and then actually the Saints picked up my contract again for another year. So that's how I played 4 years down in New Orleans. Everyone except for the first and second round in the NFL gets a 3-year deal.
Okay.
So that's when they say he's a restricted free agent. We're picking up his 4th-year option, and but the first and second round, that's where they pick up a 5th-year option. So, but no, I came up here to the Lions for a visit, and
I saw that in the papers.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I was like, man, being home would be fantastic. It'd be great and everything like that. And then I turned my phone on from airplane mode as soon as I get out of the building, and I got 40 text messages and 20 voicemails and a bunch of messages on Facebook and everything like that. And it was like, hey, you better sign with the Lions. And if you sign, I'm getting tickets. I'm like, yeah. But no, they ended up not wanting to pick me up for whatever reason. They chose otherwise. But the next day, or a couple days later, the Titans called me, and the 4 days prior to that, one of their guys had gotten signed by Indiana, the Colts. So hey, there's an opening. We like you. We think you fit perfect. Come on down for a visit. And by the end of the visit, I was signing a contract. So
that interesting team, a little bit different than New Orleans, which I guess would characterize as primarily a passing-oriented team. You're going to a team with the Titans, where very good young quarterback, but two big running backs, Murray and Henry. How is that? I mean, from your perspective, do you like that better? How does that change?
I love it better. That's who I am. I love the whole run offense, and it's funny. I say smash mouth, but they have a exotic smash mouth is what they call it, a style offense where we're gonna throw some razzle dazzle in the backfield, but we're still coming down and we're gonna punch you in the mouth. So I love that style of offense. And when I was there for a visit, actually. And I was like, hey, don't, like I was telling Coach Malarkey, I was like, hey, this is, I'd love to come here. I think it's great, but am I going to have to keep backing up, 85% or 90% of the snaps? Like that's that's not my deal. And one of the things of, you know, being in the NFL is like you have to know who you are, right? And that's just not my gig. You know, I'm not gonna do well in those situations. Put me back there. You know? So he's like, no. He's like, I'm pretty sure we're like 60-40 run pass here, and I'm like, no one's 60-40. So he literally was sitting at his desk, turned around, grabbed a big old binder, and it had the whole season broken down into everything. He flipped to it, and he's like, yep, right here we were, you know, 57% passing and 43%. And then he's like, well, take out third down and 2 minute and this and that. And he's like, I bet you we're close to 50-50. And I'm like, no kidding. I'm like, well, that's the spot for me, right? So being down there and being with those guys, especially like you said, having Henry and Murray is phenomenal. You know, to have a 1-2 punch like that in the NFL is ridiculous. It's going to be really hard to stop us on offense, I think, especially. We picked up Corey Davis in the draft, from wide receiver from Western. So it should be a real interesting year.
It should be, and you know, it's kind of funny. This is called the downtime for professional athletes. You just got done with the voluntary, and the training camp starts in what, a couple weeks?
A couple weeks, yeah. I got to report back the 28th.
Okay, so give us just a quick idea. What do you do? What's your regimen for training during these quote down periods?
Well, I try and get up, you know, in the morning and around 8-9 o'clock somewhere, something like that. Head up to Viking Fitness. Okay. My buddy actually, he's staying in town with me. He's gonna go. Just got done at Grand Valley. Probably looking to get picked up somewhere in camp by a team in the NFL. So he and I go up there, work out in the morning, and then in the afternoons we're, you know, swimming in the river, swimming up in the Y, and doing drills on the football field and running hills and things like that. So just trying to, you know, not stay in shape but get in even better shape, because I know, you know, coming off of OTAs and veteran minicamp and things like that, like they told us, hey, this team can be special, but we need to keep progressing with our, you know, conditioning and things like that. So I don't want to be one of the guys that lets the team down. Sure.
Yeah. Well, listen, I am really pleased you guys found time to come in. I know you're very, very busy between the camp and the foundation and obviously the party coming up, but thanks very much for coming in. It's been a great time talking to both of you. I will say to everybody that kind of watches the show, if you get a chance to go on the foundation's website, I know Paul Dingeman, our director, has showed it a couple times. Please do that. It's a very, very worthy place to donate, and also think very closely about trying to get down to that party in the plaza. I'm sure that'll be a great time. So again, thanks very much, guys. Thanks for coming in. That's it for this afternoon. John Carter saying, see you next week on Press Box.